I call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to again call the roll.
Trustee Cameron?
Here.
Carbonaro?
Here.
DEYNE?
Yes, here.
Kenya?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Ranky?
Present.
President Wallace?
Here. First item we have this evening in our Committee of the Whole meeting is the Building and Zoning. Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Wallace. We have one item under Building and Zoning tonight, and that is Maze Lounge Special Use Permit. The petitioner is requesting a special use permit to serve alcohol in order to obtain a liquor license and obtain a state video gaming license. The proposed location will be 211 South Main Street. With that, Mr. Klonzinski, if you have anything to add.
It's pretty straightforward, as you stated. It's Maze Lounge is proposed for across the street. I just have their floor plan out there. Angela Adamain is Atamian is here as representing Maze Lounge. They'd like to take a space that was once there was a barber shop there, and just looking at some of the pictures, we went. One of our staff members went to Maze that opened in Lake Zurich. It's more of an upscale kind of cafe-looking project. It's got video gaming in the one side, and you can see in the next slide. And they want to just serve beer and wine to their patrons. And they do have a menu that they handed out in front of you. And they're here prior to moving on to their required public hearing, which would go to the Plan Commission for their special use for their liquor license. And Angela is here if you have any questions, or if you have any questions of staff, we'll try to answer them.
Great. Do you want to add anything, Angela?
I don't have anything to add. I'm here for questions.
Yeah, go up to the podium, Angela, sorry.
I don't have anything to add. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I did bring some presentation boards if anybody would like to see them even after the fact. But nothing's really new in comparison to the menus that I believe some of you have in front of you, as well as the floor plan. This is just a mock floor plan. The one that was up is actually the floor plan for the location on Main Street.
How many other locations do you have?
We have 2 that have opened. We have about 6 that are at some point in the build-out process. So Hickory Hills, it was our first location. Lake Zurich was our second location.
Is the layout similar or comparable to what we see here?
They are all very similar. We do a 21 and over for the whole location itself. So some of them have an actual separate room based on square footage for the gaming portion of the business. As you can see here, it's kind of all within the one front lounge area.
I know we have a gaming facility in the same strip mall. Does that, do you think, helps or hurt your business?
Are you talking about the restaurant?
Yes.
So we find that it draws 2 different crowds. I think that the businesses that have the restaurant with the gaming, people don't like to necessarily leave their family to go game, or maybe that's the only way that they can go do that. In our setting, we've drawn a little bit of like small group gatherings that are able to kind of entertain in our space, call it maybe bachelorette parties, things like that. So it kind of serves a little bit of a different purpose. We do have a full menu. A lot of our items do end up being complimentary. So our goal is to really feel like that upscale VIP gaming lounge, not necessarily trying to be like a room off to the side that you play in. We want it to feel like you're walking into a room in Vegas and you're getting a very personalized experience. Everything from our furnishings to our service is levels above, what you receive in any of the other, sit down at your own machine, take care of yourself type of venue.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee?
Yeah, how many people can you accommodate?
Can we accommodate? So it depends on the space. In this case, I know we had a lot in Lake Zurich. I think we usually, I think we have, for this space, it looks like we're probably still limiting at max 20. The most we ever really see is, if you have 5 terminals full, there might be like 2 couples sitting at a terminal, because sometimes like husband and wife will sit together. So I would say at any given time, we might have max actually 7 players. We also, I've had people come in who sit to do a little bit of work or have, a beer and kind of just lounge and use that space. But for the most part, I'd say 7 gamers max, 1 employee at any given time, as well as maybe 2 to 3 people using the space in itself.
Well, you were saying small groups before, so that's
Oh,
right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So when we do like our grand openings, for example, I know that we've had about 25 people. We've had a couple of like mayor meetings there for other villages. So for example, like Burbank, Berwyn are 2 of our upcoming locations where we've hosted them in Hickory Hills for some of their inquiries about the space. So I would say in that case, we've had about 12, and Hickory Hills is a little bit bigger.
All right. You going to offer Wi-Fi service or anything like that?
We have it at all of our locations, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, we have it at all of our locations.
Okay, I don't have anything.
All right, I have a question, we'll come back to Jim. Obviously, in the findings of fact, when we get to the consideration for being a school nearby, I really think that the Arts at Bartlett, it may not be a school technically, but they are teaching kids. There's a lot of kids that are coming into that school, that facility, and I'm concerned about that for one thing. And then secondly, and I brought this up before, the point of the findings of fact. I mean, there seems to be, and maybe this needs to go to Brian, because it seems to be that it means nothing, basically. If we're elected officials and we say that such will not, under the circumstance of the particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, morals, or general welfare of persons residing or working in the vicinity, or be injurious to property value or improvement in the vicinity, as elected officials, like it or not, people are going to get what our moral values may be. And so, in my estimation, there could be moral issues with this. There could be health issues with this. And yet, it seems to be that this whole findings of fact is just a farce, basically. So, I don't know what we're doing with it here at all, but I certainly have issues with being so close to Art and Bartlett's and having kids that close by, and I have issues with it being a health issue for residents that would be there and potentially have ill effects from the gambling. And I have as a moral objection personally, and I don't think people in Bartlett would, at least I'd like to think that people in Bartlett don't want more video gaming places.
The findings of fact are the standard findings of fact that we have for the special use. So they pertain to any developer or person that's going to get a special use. So they have to address those. Those are all good arguments as to why you would not want to have them. On the other hand, you have video gaming just down the street in a restaurant that's within same walking distance right next to Two Toots, which is basically a child's restaurant. And that operation is going full blast, and kids can go in there. This is a 21-year-old limited operation. I'm going to be honest with you, we get calls every week for video gaming. We're going to have a couple more that are going to be coming online. So you're going to be faced with this, as Trustee Gabrenia said, if you're looking at something that's going to limit them. The state has not. It's a liquor license requirement under our ordinance. We're entertaining a truck stop that would qualify under the state gaming license for a truck stop, and you're going to have that proposal. So they're not going to stop in terms of the petitions coming to us and the calls coming to us. So,
Well, if that's the case, then I think we should be looking at reevaluating our whole ordinance for findings of fact special uses. In fact, I would personally like to see that changed, because it's useless.
That particular language comes from case law, and some of it comes from the state statute. Each board member votes on whether or not it meets those standards, and from your comments, you feel that it's morally repugnant, or you could not enter a finding of fact that it's not against the morals because of your beliefs toward gambling, and you're entitled to that. But changing the findings of fact does not alter that. Those findings of fact are necessary. You may feel that you couldn't vote yes to those findings of fact. Not every board member may have the same belief relative to gambling.
True.
Now, that being said, and relative to the school question, that issue is spelled out in the state statute, and they talk about basically, public elementary schools, some private elementary schools, but it wouldn't meet the strict requirements of the restrictions in the state statute. That isn't to say that the same rationale as to why they don't want it here a school would not apply to Arts and Bartlett if, in fact, there are often children there taking classes. It's the same idea. So that may be a reason in your mind. You may vote no.
I would make it a suggestion because of two trustees bringing up questions, and I'm sure that some of the new trustees weren't around when this gaming situation all started to transpire. I was on the EDC, that was a long time ago. I would suggest that at this point, we review the total, the ways that our legal counsel can suggest that we somehow put some parameters on the number of locations or the requirements for locations and come to a consensus then before we send this nice young lady down a path that is unknown. Right? Because I think we have some discussion around the global concept of video gaming versus one individual petitioning for a suggested space. So I would suggest that we at the next, this is your chair, so you can do what you would like, Chairman Hopkins, but I would suggest that we request that at the next board meeting, we have another committee meeting, and we review what we found out in the past, we review some case law, and we decide what we think is best for our village based on those findings.
I think as Trustee Gabrinya brought up under new business at the board meeting, she wanted to talk about that at a future committee meeting. So I think we should definitely do that. As far as this goes, has Arts and Bartlett raised any issue with gaming at O'Hare's place?
I have not heard them about O'Hare's. I did get a call from an Arts and Bartlett person about this location. They didn't file any objection. They just expressed, concerns, and that's basically where it was at. And I said there will be a public hearing on it, so you can attend the public hearing because we'll put a notice out on. They'll have to put a notice on the property, and then there will be a public hearing in front of the Plan Commission. So that they were satisfied with that answer.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to formally object, I don't know.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything else to add?
I would just say in terms of timing, I'm going to be out of town for the next week, leaving tomorrow morning, and your cutoff for the board package is, before I get back. So I really wouldn't be able to research and add to what we had from the past for the next committee meeting, but I could do that for the following committee meeting if that's okay. In terms of this particular petitioner, whether you hold that in abeyance until you've had a chance to review it or send it.
They're not, sorry, they're not scheduled to go to the Plan Commission till the June meeting anyway, so you're looking at June 16th, I think.
So we should, I think by the first meeting in June, we should be able to have our review on current case law, the stuff that's occurred since our last discussion as a board around this topic, and then some nitty-gritty about what we would like to propose as acceptable to the village.
So should we forward this on to the Plan Commission for a public hearing?
No, I think that's a waste of time.
We can do the meeting on the first.
I think you've heard the comments from our committee here, so I would leave it in your court whether you want to proceed or not, or if you want to wait till we talk about it further.
Yeah, like Jim said, it wasn't scheduled till the
Because
second meeting in June.
Because right now, it is, I understand trustee Cameron's, I agree with a lot of what he says, but prior boards have approved video gaming in this town. And I don't like to pick winners and losers, so it is legal in this town, and that's the way I look at it. So.
One of the things that's unique about this, Trustee Hopkins, is that this is a moving phenomenon. Nobody would have predicted the outcome of this way back when. In fact, most people predicted the complete and utter failure of these little gaming locations. There's a huge demand, as I think Ms. Angela would probably tell us, there's a huge demand for this particular product. So it's in our best interest to figure out how us as the village leaders are going to support and supply that demand in our village.
And I would say to the petitioner, your concept and your explanation, your description of your business, making it a VIP experience, is appreciated. It's not your concept, it's the overall concept of gaming that we as a village need to embrace a better understanding of. So I don't want to offend you as a business person. We in Bartlett are very pro-business, and I do appreciate your presentation and the things that you gave us and the images that you provided for us. So thank you for being here, and we have some work to do. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that the first committee meeting in June might be a good one for you guys to come back and get an understanding of where the discussion is leading regarding what, if any, additional parameters we're going to try to attempt to put on additional gaming facilities. Yep.
So one of the issues that we do run into with this is that, we sign a lease, and our lease has X amount of days for approval and things like that. So the forcing it to move out, which could push off our next meeting, because we may not have enough time to do public hearing between that and the next meeting, or the public hearing notice, does concern me in your decision to push this off. I think what the business owner has developed with this is really trying not to be that diner that comes in with, cheap furniture sitting around, really make it a space that people will use for other things, but also, you have the kids doing, I'm guessing it's a music school,
Music art.
music art, so the parents drop their kids off for maybe an hour session. The parents have something to do while they're, waiting for their child to attend whatever they're attending. I think it's a very valid form of entertainment. I personally, I don't really game. It was something that I didn't know a lot about before I got into this business. But I am finding that the reception of this, I'm overwhelmed by what's happening in Lake Zurich. We have 5 chairs filled 90% of the day. It's insane. And people come in right at 8 o'clock when we open. And there's prominent people. I have people from other villages who are coming over to Lake Zurich to play, people who sit on a board like yourself. So it's not, I probably shared a lot of the unknown views as you did, but I personally am just seeing that Maze is being received a lot differently. People are moving in to utilize our space because it's a lot nicer than any of the others that are out there.
I really appreciate that, and I don't want to be crass, but the leasing thing is not something that the board controls. We have to make sure that the board is unanimous, especially with something like this. So I think that, or at least the bulk of the board is in favor of what's going to happen in Bartlett from here on out. So I do appreciate your candor about your lease, but unfortunately that's not something that we can control. We can move our portion of it as fast as we can. Being the first meeting in June, we'll have a frank discussion about our options, and I'll hurry Mr. Mraz along with his discussion. But I think that's where we're leading, where we're heading.
All right, that's all we have under building and zoning tonight.
Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Chairman Hopkins. Next item we have in the committee of the whole meeting agenda under Finance and Golf is Chairman DEYNE.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we are going to discuss the presentation or the responses to the request for proposal for the broker consultant services for the village's health, dental, and life insurance. And I'd like Janelle, our Human Resources Director, to discuss this further.
What'd you do to yourself?
Running injury.
Shouldn't try to exercise.
Shouldn't we? Good evening,
Did
thank
you take that to Human Resources? Was that a workman's comp case?
No,
You weren't running down the hall, I hope.
no.
Right, good.
Good evening. As you recall, in February, the end of February, February 22nd, we issued a request for proposals for, from insurance brokers and consultants qualified to perform and also interested in providing brokerage services for health, dental, and life insurance plans for the Village of Bartlett. In response to that RFP, we received 9 responses. I attached a list of the firms and the brokers and the consultants that submitted those responses, along with the address of the assigned location to the village. Our initial evaluation included a review of the experience and qualifications of the firm, the account executive assigned to the village's account, the description of how the account would be handled, and the types of services provided, the access to the markets for health, dental, and life insurance, as I know that was a concern, and overall clarity and responsiveness of the proposal submitted. We also took into consideration experience with municipal clients. Also, cost containment strategies was a huge factor for us to consideration, and fees for service. We attached a chart indicating the foundation by which these submissions were evaluated. And after discussion, we made a decision to present 4 possible brokers or consultants for further consideration for the village board. The following 4 brokers or consultants are recommended for further review: Arachis Group, GCG Financial, the Horton Group, and Hub International Midwest Unlimited. The staff is recommending the village board continue the selection process by inviting these 4 companies to make a presentation to the village committee of the whole, where board members would then have an opportunity to ask questions and perhaps listen to a presentation by these brokers to get some more information or to put a face with the name, I guess, so to speak. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have about the process or listen to your thoughts about how to proceed further with this process.
You know, I think that's an excellent idea. They have these people come before the entire board, make a presentation. However, I do have one thing that I definitely want to add, and that's the fact that I respect the efforts that you put forth in qualifying the 4 candidates, but I went through the list also, and there's one other firm that I would like to add, and if we're giving them 15 minutes or 20 minutes, regardless, to present their case to the village board, I think they should be included. And I want to add Connor and Gallagher Insurance Services to the list also. So rather than 4, we'll have 5.
Anybody have any issues with that?
That's not the same Gallagher that tried to sell us that bill of goods on the self-funding plan.
No, it's not the same.
Okay. Gallagher is a common enough name.
Yeah, that Gallagher is the global That's the big Gallagher in
Yeah.
Schaumburg, I believe.
Yeah.
Zurich, isn't it?
The pool.
The pool, yes, the
Yeah.
self-funded pool.
Okay, so that's what we'll do, and we'll get some feedback. This is a lot of work for staff, I know.
It is.
To pour through these RFPs, and I like the criteria that you set out, especially the different funding and fees that are required, or how they make their money. So after years and years of getting quotes for my own group health insurance, I can almost guarantee it's not going to make a huge difference because they all come from 2 or 3 big major carriers. So the proof, the best savings that we are going to find is in massaging the actual benefits no matter who we choose. So that's where you can save the vast, vast amount of money. So this is, I look at this portion as maybe a little bit of vetting, and then the next portion as far as what the actual coverages show, that's the highlight of where we can try to work out saving some village money.
When do we necessarily have to make a decision on this?
Our renewal is September, isn't it?
September?
Actually, we changed to a January 1st renewal date.
Okay.
So we need plans in place by November so that,
December 29th, and then you can enroll everybody in one day?
no, that by law, we have to have the plans in place so that they have a certain number of days to consider before they make any changes to their,
Well, I think
to look at viable options.
Okay.
The meetings with these firms should be at the discretion of the mayor, so in my opinion, I would have staff coordinated with the mayor, and I think we should move forward at this point.
Our plan is to bring them to the committee of the whole. So it'll be at a regular committee of the whole board meeting.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be a committee meeting, maybe split them out.
Right.
Get 2 and 2.
Yeah, and I will defer that task of coordinating that back to the Finance Committee Chair.
We'll take it, Ray.
All right.
Mr. President, that's all we have this evening.
Chairman, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So the
We've been talking for 10, 15 minutes, and
the column that shows the pricing, Janelle, is basically just their fees. We have no company, no quote. We're just looking at the fees for this particular agency.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
This the
Right-hand column with the pricing.
pricing for the broker.
Yes, yes.
So there's no quotes, there's no companies. So we could.
Correct. Because as you can see, some of the fees are commission-based, and so it would again depend on the totality of the plan under consideration and the cost of those plans. So if it's a percentage of commissions, for example, like our current broker is a 2% commission-based, is what he is paid.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
What, we have Delta Dental?
We have Delta Dental for our dental insurance. We have Dearborn National for our life insurance, and we have Blue Cross Blue Shield for our health insurance.
I'm just wondering, because none of these people are in Bartlett. We have somebody in Bartlett right now. Why do we want to switch from a company that we've been working with for 30-some-odd years? When,
Yeah, our current broker is
on the list.
Yeah.
okay. So realistically, he's going to go shopping to the same 2 or 3 top-level dental plans, and we're going to get the same quote from everybody. So I'm not quite sure why we're going through this process to remove an agent that we've been working with for 30-some-odd years so that we can go to some other person.
because the board requested that staff do an all-encompassing review of what it would cost us to renew our insurance and try to get competitive quotes with other brokers, and then in turn, try to adjust some of the coverages and other things. There's so many different things that come into play these days with wellness and all kinds of ideas from different brokers that are experts at different things. We've requested staff to do it. They've done a good job of giving us 7 or 10 choices. They've narrowed it down to 5. We'll hear from them all, and we'll go from there.
Agreed.
Waste of time.
Anything else?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman
Mr.
DEYNE.
President.
Next item we have under our committee meeting on the police and health is Chairman Carbonaro.
Okay. First item we have is, where does it go? Again. Okay, first item we have is a vehicle replacement process review. The village board asked the police department to review its vehicle replacement process and survey other departments regarding their vehicle replacement criteria. You have anything to add, Chief?
Good evening. During our recent budget meeting, the village board had asked us to take a look at other municipalities' vehicle replacement processes. So Deputy Chief Perkelis and Sergeant Rybaski and the intern we have on our staff right now did a survey of some other agencies, and Jeff put together a nice memo about what other municipalities are doing as far as vehicle replacement goes and evaluating vehicles when it comes time to be replaced, and also found villages of Oswego and St. Charles use a spreadsheet to evaluate their vehicles. So I'll turn it over to Jeff and kind of let him explain his findings from the survey.
Thanks, Chief. As Chief mentioned, during the recent budget review process, the village board asked us to review the fleet replacement process and evaluate how other police departments determine when to replace our fleet vehicles. We are fortunate. Currently, we have a total of 39 different police vehicles, including 17 marked vehicles. Currently, what we do is we work with the finance department to see what vehicles are on the vehicle replacement list. And then typically, our police marked vehicles, we would replace them every 3 years at approximately 70,000 to 90,000 miles, and our specialty vehicles every 5 years, depending on the age and the mileage of the vehicles. What we did, as Chief mentioned, is we had an opportunity to review how other police departments replace their vehicles, and then we also looked at some other standards that other vehicle replacement managers use in the fields to determine when they replace their vehicles. We had an opportunity to sample 10 other police departments, how they do their vehicle maintenance, and then the majority of them replace their vehicles at 100,000 miles. Recently, we also started to track engine idling hours, and that's something that we gained from some training that we went to. So a lot of people rely on the age of vehicles and also to the mileage of vehicles, but more importantly, what a lot of fleet managers are looking at are idling hours. And Ford Fleet is indicating 1 hour of idling time is considered to be the equivalent of 33 miles driven. So for instance, last year we got rid of a 2015 Ford Explorer, which served as our sergeant's vehicle, which was used by every sergeant and would run continuously. And even though that vehicle only had approximately 88,000 miles, it had 4,100 engine idle hours, which came out to the equivalent of over 220,000 miles if you would put together the mileage as well as the idling hours. While serving the other police departments and then taking a look at their stuff, as Chief mentioned, we really liked the vehicle replacement guideline evaluation form that St. Charles has, as well as the village of Oswego. And what's nice with that form is it takes into consideration not only factors such as age and mileage, which a lot of people want to take a look at, but also it takes into account engine idling hours, what type of service the vehicle is used for. Like as I mentioned, we not only have vehicles that are used for police emergency use, but we also have specialty vehicles which don't go to emergency calls, which would be used by our detectives or our court liaison officer. Also, too, these spreadsheets take into account reliability and maintenance and repair costs and the condition of the vehicle, which are things that we currently track through Sergeant Rybaski's vehicle maintenance program. So anytime we bring a vehicle in, we track the date it was brought in, which place it was brought into, and then what the issue was, and then we were able to get a determination to see how that vehicle is holding up, if it was involved in any serious crashes, or if it needed serious like engine work or other stuff that could be quite expensive. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions in regard to what we came up in looking into a new process.
I want to thank you for all the work you did on this. Very impressive, and I particularly like that form. I think it's going to serve us well.
I do too. Thank you very much, Trustee Rankin. I appreciate it.
I have to agree. That was, something I was concerned about was the amount of hours, and could we push it out a little bit? And you guys have answered those questions and done it quite well, and I appreciate that as well, and I like the plan you've come up with. It's great.
Dr. Kammer.
I also want to thank you. I think you guys put a lot of thought into this, and you guys, I think we recommended it like a month ago, and you guys did extremely quick turnaround on this, so I was shocked to see it on the agenda this early, so Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Trustee Hopkins. Just to let you know, that was something we were working on even before that came about. We take vehicle maintenance very seriously, as Chief mentioned. That's one thing we're very proud of, is, how well our vehicles are kept up. So as a result, we had all the data and analytics at hand, and it really didn't take us much to put this information. And as Chief mentioned, I really want to thank the hard work that Sergeant Rybaski did, and especially our police intern, Jackie. She did a really nice job, as I mentioned, reaching out to the 10 other different police departments to give us an accurate gauge of how they replace their police vehicles.
In using the criteria that you found on the new form, did you apply any of your previous maintenance and change-outs to the new, and how did that turn out?
We actually did, and I'm sorry I didn't include that in your packet, but we actually had an opportunity to look at several different vehicles, including the 3 vehicles that we were looking to replace.
They were all 15 points, right?
I wish. Like, for instance, we were very honored that the village board allowed us to replace our federal task force vehicle. So looking at that vehicle, it has approximately 107,000 miles. And doing all the factors, it came up with a point total of 24, which would be in the criteria for qualifying for a replacement. Also in that process, too, we took a look at the sergeant's vehicle, which I mentioned with all the engine idling. So that only had approximately 82,000 miles, but when we did the sheet, it came up to a point total of 42, which makes very much sense because, once again, a lot of the issues deal with engine idling, which a lot of people don't take into account. And from talking to the mechanics at Bartlett Tire, they recommend, because of our heavy engine idling, that we should do our oil changes every 3,000 miles instead of 5,000 miles, just because when it idles, the engine oil doesn't break down, and it leads to a lot of different engine issues, as you kind of heard. Also, too, for some of the other vehicles, these would be the 2 sedans that we were very privileged to be able to replace. One was at 83,000 miles, and that came up with a 29-point system. And then we looked at 1507, which had 80,000 miles, which came up also as a 29-point system.
Don't share those points with who you're selling them to.
One thing I do want to just illustrate to the village board is as much as we also believe that this is going to be very helpful, there may come a time and place, though, where we might be in what I call the land of the lost, where it might not meet your criteria being close to 100,000 miles. However, if we would have to then wait 2 budget cycles to get there, you're looking probably at about 110,000 miles plus those engine idling hours, which might relate to some safety and reliability issues for those vehicles.
And I'm going to ask something just out of curiosity, and I understand being at the ready and having the car ready to go and the engine idling and everything else, but when did that come into play, and do all forces have their cars just idling, and is there play in that amount of time that a car needs to idle? We didn't discuss that, but that's a whole nother, discussion about, in reality, how much does a car need to idle, I suppose?
That's a really good question, and that's something that we talked internally at our recent department meeting as well as our staff meetings. We believe we can reduce engine idling, especially with the new building, thanks to the village board with our new police facility. We have the awnings, which will protect it from the heat and the sun, and then in the wintertime, the frost and the snow. So we think we can reduce some of the engine idling in regard to when the vehicles are there for station time with that. We also talked about our vehicles have very heavy electronics inside of them. They have radar detectors that draw power. They're going to have new thermal printers which draw power. We have our computer systems. We have our different emergency light systems. So even though we have a device which is called a charge guard, which saves the battery, we do feel that there are going to be some circumstances where we are going to have to idle these vehicles. Chief?
There's other idling times when the officer's in the squad car too. So if they're sitting there in park and the car's running and they're running radar, or they're in their car and they're parked and the car's running and they're writing a report on their computer or whatever, those are times when the car is idling too. The idling time that we're most concerned about is when it's sitting unoccupied, and that's what we're trying to create policies for, to try and reduce that amount of idling time.
I know you made comment about the Ford fleet saying it was so many miles per so many hours and stuff, but is there any information on synthetic oils that's burning in a car compared to non-synthetic, and does that make a difference? I don't know if that's something that's even available.
I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that question.
I know.
The best I can answer that, Dr. Kimmer, is as I
Where's
mentioned.
Din just said? He might be able to answer that.
The best I can answer that, though, is to save on some of the preventive maintenance is lowering our oil changes from 5,000 to 3,000 miles, which I think will decrease some of the engine issues that we have.
Now that we're going to get our oil changed more often,
No, we're not.
we're going to get a discount on the oil changes, right?
I'm glad you brought that up. That was highlighted in the email that Ms. Schumacher sent to you. I am proud to say that we are very frugal when it comes to our vehicle maintenance. And not only do we keep our services in town when we can, but also, too, we have the lowest rate. For instance, we currently utilize Bartlett Tire, and for our standard oil changes, it's $22.90. Compared to Meineke, which looking at on Laserfish was $28.92, and compared to Oil Masters when they were open was $36.67. And then Suburban Tire, these were from years ago because we stopped going there because we really liked the service and the price we got from Bartlett Tire. They turn around our vehicles very fast, but they were anywhere from the gauge, this is several years ago, anywhere from $18.56 to $27.81. So our police department, as you can see through the village, does shop around, and we get a really good value. And I know that President Wallace mentioned some warranty stuff. So our vehicles have a three-year, $36,000 warranty. And we make sure if there's any stuff that falls under warranty, we bring it to either Joe Cotton Ford or to, it used to be Zimmerman Ford, I can't think of the new name that it switched over to, but they make sure they take care of our vehicles where there's no charge. Even to the point where some stuff falls under outside of the warranty, like for instance, we had some turn signal modules that went bad. We actually worked with Ford Fleet in Detroit, and they were able to mediate the cost to get those at a cheaper rate. So we really take, we don't take for granted the money that's given to us in our vehicle maintenance, new equipment or vehicle setup account. As you can see, we hold ourselves accountable to make sure we get the best rate and the best service.
Thank you.
One question for you. Who sponsored the report on 33 miles equals 1 hour idling? Tell me it wasn't Ford or GM.
So actually, if you look in the, if you look in any of the manuals that come with the vehicles, it is printed in there. But also too, I was able to find some research from doing a Google search from other fleet managers out there, and that seems to be a common trend for that mileage. Sometimes higher, depending if it's diesel vehicles, sometimes lower.
Sounds like a report that a Ford auto manufacturer would sponsor, but I like it. Very, very thorough. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Does anybody have any other? Nothing further. All right. That is it for our committee of the whole meeting. And we are going to be adjourning to executive session to discuss and set the price for sale of property owned by the Village of Bartlett pursuant to Section 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act. That I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session. Second.